Hello, fourth year. This is our first lecture in linguistics, and today we're gonna start with the first paper in your book, Linguistic Studies, which includes a number of papers I have conducted throughout my research career. Okay, this paper, the first paper is Argumentative Strategies and Lectures in Tony Blair's resignation speech, a relevant theoretic study. As you see, this study tackles a number of topics. The first one is argumentative strategies, and we're gonna see what's meant by that and what's meant by argumentation and what are the different kinds of arguments, and what are the arguments used in political discourse and political speeches, and so on. I'm going to lectures, and lectures are, as you see, as the term itself suggests, implicated. It means implicated. The word means implicated messages, hidden messages, indirect messages, messages that could be inferred, not necessarily made explicit. And then we have Blair's resignation speech. First, we're gonna see something about the Prime Minister Tony Blair, who took office in 1997, and he stayed in office for a decade, for 10 years, and then he resigned in 2007. We're gonna talk about him, and we're gonna talk about resignation speech as a genre of speeches, and as a genre of political discourse in general. And then we're gonna talk about all these things from the perspective of the relevance theory. And the relevance theory is a linguistic theory that has been proposed by two scientists, linguists. We're gonna see them later on. And let's go directly to this is abstract. I'm not going to stay here for so long, but let's see what's the purpose of the paper. Usually the abstract tells us, the story from the beginning to the end in a brief way. The abstract tells us what's the purpose of the study, how the study, the methodology, how the study has been conducted, and the findings, what are the main results that the study get or obtained. Okay, so let's read the first lines. This paper is a relevant theoretic investigation of the argumentative strategies and lectures they generate in Blair's resignation address. Relevant theory, or RT, hinges on the notion that human communication is highly inferential and relevance driven. We're gonna know all these things later on, okay? And now we go directly to the introduction. Any paper must start with an introduction, okay? And in this introduction, we start writing about the topic, but from a general perspective, just to furnish a background. So the process, let's start. The process of meaning interpretation has long intrigued pragmatic theories, and pragmatic is a theories belong to linguistic discipline or linguistic branch or science called pragmatics. And pragmatics is a study of the meaning as it's intended by the speaker, not meaning per se, or the meaning of text alone. No, as it is intended by the speaker. So we can say that pragmatics studies the speaker or the addresser's meaning. Okay, and we have many advances in this field. In the cognitive science is going viral, and we have many sciences derived from cognitive science. One of them is cognitive pragmatics, which paid considerable attention to the study of cognitive processes underlying meaning interpretation. This science or cognitive pragmatics studies how meaning is created in the minds of the listeners, or the addressees, or the people who receive the text, and what's the influence of contextual or cognitive environment. We're gonna read and explain all these things. So the main purpose of cognitive pragmatics, which is a science or a branch of pragmatics, which studies the meaning as it's intended by the speaker, is that it shifts to study the role of the audience. What is the role of the audience in creating meaning and arriving at or figuring out the meaning of a particular political speech or political text, etc. Because actually the role of the audience and what's happening inside the minds of the audience, this has been ignored for so long by pragmatic studies. So it's now cognitive pragmatics is shifting to get to this dark area and to have a window into the minds of the audience. So this is a very important breakthrough in the field of pragmatics. Okay, and then we have the first thing we're gonna know about relevant theory, or RT. From now on, we're gonna say RT. Is that this is a communication theory, and it has been instituted by two important and prominent linguists, Sperber and Wilson, and it is the main the main idea or point of the theory is that human communication is largely an inferential process. We mean more than what we say. What we say is so little if we compare it to what we mean, in the sense that what is unsaid is equally or even more important than what's said. We are not necessarily saying everything. Sometimes silence is speaking loudly and speaking volumes and volumes. This is how human communication works. Most of our human communication is inferential. بنستنتج حاجات مش بتتقال explicitly, and so on. Recognizing speakers' informative and communicative intentions implies a key aspect of human communication, and we have to say that to communicate in order to arrive at or to fulfill successful communications, there must be some sort of cooperation between the speaker and recipients or listeners, or whatever the recipient of the text. And according to RT, this is a very important from now on, this is a very important part. Actually, I want you to read it. According to RT, meaning interpretation is conditioned on two basic cognitive processes. Number one, cognitive effects, which is meaning, and number two, cognitive processing effort, effects, gain, and efforts. Which means that we as listeners, or we as readers, recipients of any text, we strike a balance between the processing effort to exert in arriving at the meaning or in interpreting a particular text on the one hand, and the reward here is the meaning itself. So the cognitive effect is the meaning. Once we arrive at the meaning and once we figure out what's intended by the speaker, this is called cognitive effects, meaning interpretation. And how can we arrive at this, and how can we get this? By exerting processing effort. جهد ذهني احنا بنبذله علشان الوصول للمعنى. Relevance theory is a theory that says that humans in general try to strike a balance between these two ends, these two things. Number one, we all need to arrive at the meaning of the or the messages intended by the speakers or by the writers or the producer of text. On the other hand, this needs effort, processing effort, cognitive effort, mental effort. Okay, so we need these two things to go betterly, and the effort must be the meaning that we get must not there must be some sort of balance between them. I shouldn't exert effort and at the end of the day I don't get the meaning. I will give up. Okay, so as long as I get meaning, I will exert more and more effort and so on. So if a text gives the meaning and gives clues to its readers or its listeners to process it or to understand it easily, this means that this is a relevant text. So the idea of relevance means that there we arrive at the meaning of a particular text with the least effort. If this happens, the text is relevant and relevance is fulfilled. Right? Okay. And since processing information needs effort, there should be a reward. What's this reward? It's meaning, interpretation. To figure out meaning, to arrive at meaning, to generate meaning, which is manifested in understanding the message. Cognitive effects. What's cognitive effects? Meaning, arriving at meaning, understanding meaning, processing meaning. Understand? Relevance manifests itself in the balance. That's what I said. In the balance strike between these two ends. Cognitive effort for cognitive effects. Don't forget this. It's a very important definition and a very important thing we can say about relevance. Okay? The message to be processed must be ostensive, very clear, explicitly or implicitly, verbally or non-verbally, so as to secure an interpretation on the part of the addressee. Okay, so in order to understand the text, there must be some sort of clues, شروط, مفاتيح للنص that can help me as a recipient to understand and work out what's meant by this text. So unless there are cues to help me, unless there are certain clues to help me, certain facilitative things to help me, I'm not going to arrive at it. Okay, another thing is that the listeners themselves or the recipients themselves must have some sort of background knowledge, word experience, mental models that can help them add to the text. Because the meaning of a text, whatever this text, and we have to understand that the word text is not restricted to written text. The concept of text must be broader than ever. Why? Because a text is anything that can give or create meaning. Anything, whatever it is, as long as it creates and generates meaning and gives the messages, it's a text. Smoking, the smoke actually that we see, is a text. visual things are text. What we hear, what we see, even what we feel through our skins, and so are everything is as long as it gives a meaning is text. Okay. So unless there are things from the text that help recipients and help audience, uh, this will be a very difficult thing for audience to work out meaning. Okay, and we're gonna talk about later on about how processing of speech and how processing of text takes place. Okay, and then we go political speech, and political discourse. What's meant by political discourse? Anything that is related to politics. For example, political speeches, parliamentary discussions, presidential debates, press conferences, press releases, political commentaries, and all these things are called political discourse. Okay. And discourse is something we're gonna talk about later on, because the idea of discourse is something beyond the text. It's everything that can help us. You can say everything that can help us understand a text. This is called discourse. Okay, my knowledge, my ideologies, the ideologies of the community I'm belonging to, traditions, cultures, beliefs, convictions, values, principles, politics, and all these things. So political discourse is ostensibly persuasive, in which it is assumed that recipients are hounded by relevant ostensive يعني clear argumentative strategies, and any argumentative strategy inherently comprises two elements. Any argumentative strategy actually must include reasoning aspects, which has to do with logically constructed arguments, where we have claims supported by data and so on, and also social persuasive aspects, which are concerned with making the arguments attractive to the audience, by displaying an awareness of audience beliefs and appeals, the strength of these beliefs and prior knowledge, and etc. All these things. Okay, so any well-built argument must include something logical, okay, and at the same time must address the ego of the audience, must address the favorable things related to audience, must come into contact with audience beliefs and appeals and ideas and so on. And then we have in this paragraph, one inherent property of political speech is that it's highly inferential. Yeah, politicians, not only political speech, actually human communication in general is highly inferential. يعني اللي بنستنتجه أكتر من اللي بيتقال لنا. Human communication مبني على كده. Politicians prefer to convey their argumentation implicitly, leaving the audience to deduce the politician's desirable messages by making argumentational links, drawing conclusion, and deriving implications. We're going to talk about that later on, because in order to make an argument, there must be a number of elements. Number one, there must be a claim. This is an opinion, and then this claim must be supported by evidence, by data, and there must be a warrant linking these two things. Unless we have, supported claims, arguments cannot be accepted in most of the cases. Unless we have something else that we're gonna talk about regarding the audience and the emotional arguments that are used in political discourse, as we're gonna see. Okay. This is also related to what we said before. Let's talk about Van Dyck, one of the most important scientists in the field of linguistics, discourse analysis, pragmatics, text analysis, and um, really an encyclopedia linguist. Is talking about how lectures or hidden messages are there in human communication, including political discourse, and how the attitudes of the audience towards the politician, whether negative or positive, and the attitude towards the topic is talking about. All these things are very important in whether the audience gonna understand or accept what's being said or not. So the politician or the speaker doesn't stand in front of the audience and the audience are empty-headed. No, they come, they sit and they have with them their experiences, their knowledge, their beliefs, their ideas, their biases, their expectations, and and so on and so forth, their values. And the idea of the audience doesn't sit next or in front of the politician or the speaker without doing anything. They are not passive receivers. No, they are very active. They are very, very active. Okay, and this is the argument, the organization of the paper. We're going to talk about argument types and then the role of intellectual. And as we said, intellectual means hidden messages, explicit messages, and so on. Implicit messages, and then the roots, processing roots of argumentation. Roots. How do the audience understand arguments, accept or doesn't or reject argumentation, and this depends on the kind of audience. We have three kinds of audience. Actually, we have friendly audience, we have neutral audience, and we have hostile audience, unfriendly audience. Friendly audience accept all the ideas of their favorable and of their beloved politician, regardless of their reasoning and regardless of their logicality or and so on, we can say, or regardless of its logic and its structure and so on. On the other hand, hostile audience, whatever is given to them by a given politician, they do not accept, and they are stubbornly cling to their own ideas, and they do not want to change their minds because they are ideologically and maybe yes, and politically on the other side of the road. They cannot get closer, and they want to stick to their own ideas. They don't want to change and so on. Let's check if things are okay with the mic. Yes. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the audience and how each type of audience process and understand and receives political speeches. And then we have the function of intellectuals. Why do politicians provide hidden messages? And then finally, we're going to talk about the major characteristics of resignation speeches as a genre of speeches, as genre of political discourse. Okay. Political speeches have captivated people and scientists since the dawn of history. And now let's move to something else. We're gonna talk about go directly to Relevance Theory. We talked about it before. Let's see that RT actually is based on the fact that human communication is largely inferential, where the addresser, the producer of a text, the speaker or the writer, whatever, offers certain evidence or clues by which the addressee, لو ما بقى readers أو listeners, can successfully infer meaning. So the producer of the text, the speaker or the writer, must give certain evidence or clues. Without these clues, it's gonna be very difficult for the addressee, the recipients, to infer meaning, to figure out meaning, and so on. Communication is viewed as a problem-solving task for both communicators. إزاي؟ For the addresser, speaker يعني or writer, what's problematic is to provide enough evidence, extensive stimuli lead to stimuli to make it possible for the addressee to work out the relevant interpretation. يبقى الدور بتاع الادريسر need enough clues, enough evidence, extensive stimuli to the addressee to help him or to help them understand the text. طيب the addressee اللي هو المتلقي بقى on the other hand gets his or her problem solved when he or she assumes that the message is relevant and worthy of the processing effort exerted. Okay, so the recipients think that this must be relevant or should be relevant, and we should exert processing effort in order to figure out meaning or work out meaning, and so on. Okay, let's see this part. Is very important, by the way. Explaining the cognitive process or processes involved in communication. RT holds that the addressee's أهم حاجة المتلقي, the addressee's interpretation of meaning is constrained by, number one, expectations of relevance. هو متوقع ان the text is relevant or the speech is relevant. يعني ايه? It includes certain clues that can facilitate the process of understanding this text. Okay, number two, addresses word knowledge, schema. Without word knowledge, we cannot understand anything, because understanding or comprehension or processing of any text is a result of an incredible mix between what the text tells us and what we give to the text from our mental models and our memories and our background knowledge and our schema and our world experience and beliefs and so on, things that we store, because we have mental model for everything we learn, everything we see, everything we hear, everything we know about, everything we get from this world. There must be a mental model. Unless we have a mental model or schema or background knowledge, we cannot understand and process it easily. Suppose that I'm reading a text in physics and I can, decode it. I can know what are the words, but I cannot work out the meaning because I don't have enough background knowledge on physics to help me process meaning and add to it and add to the text to get the meaning easily. Because the meaning is not there in the text alone. The meaning is the outcome of what's in the text and what's in us, in our heads. Hope that this is understood. In the above introduction, we have many words. Relevance خلاص فهمناها إن a text must be is relevant if it includes enough clues to help us understand the text easily. And the number two, ostensive inferential effects. Ostensive means clear. Inferential effects, which means arriving at the meaning itself. And then we have efforts, the mental effort we exert الجهد الذهني اللي احنا بنعمله. And then we have cognitive processing, what's happening inside our head. And then we have context, سياق, كل دي terms, very very important. Contexts. And then we have implicature, hidden meanings, hidden messages, implicated messages. All these represent the core of the core elements of orality. يبقى دي النظرية اللي بتقول إن لازم يبقى التكست كذا وديت are the main terms that we should know and should know how to define them as long as we are studying orality relevance theory. We're not going to talk for so long about this relevance and so on. Relevance, yes, let's go to this. Relevance is seen as this is another important thing. I think that we mentioned this before, okay, but let's repeat. Relevance is seen as a balance between cognitive effects, اللي هي the message worked out when we arrive at the meaning, and the processing effort, الجهد اللي احنا بنعمله. The less the processing effort needed, and the greater cognitive effects the utterance has. Okay, if we arrive at the meaning with the least effort, this means that the text is really relevant and really reader friendly. Okay, if this doesn't happen, we cannot consider it as a text relevant. It's no longer relevant. It's irrelevant. Okay. In other words, the cognitive effects اللي هو قلنا المعنى خلاص arising from the message should be greater than the processing cost. The gain must be bigger than cost in order for the communication to be relevant. And if I put effort in I try to understand the text, and whatever I do, I can't arrive at the meaning, I will give up. Why? Because the cost, which is the effort I put are way bigger than the gain, the meaning I gonna get, I gonna understand. So if this balance doesn't exist, communication breaks and we stop communicating and so on. Sperber and Wilson discuss relevance in relation to communicators alike. يعني إيه? They argue that it is this relation that makes communication rewarding. The addresser managed to encode the message that have the optimal cognitive effects. اللي هي الإيه المعنى يعني أكبر قدر ممكن المعنى on the addressee board, and برضو the same idea, striking balance and so on. Okay. This is a very important thing. Let's go to another part. With relevance theory, yes, the same idea. There must be some sort of balance between cost and gain, effort and gain, and so on. Let's look at ostensive inferential model of communication. What's ostensive means strong, means explicit, means clear, means no. And here ostensive inferential, what does this mean? Is that even if the speaker doesn't mention everything, we can arrive at meaning through inferencing, الاستدلال, الاستنتاج, and so on. Okay. Let's read this part. Yes. Relevance is a universal concept, and it functions in terms of the ostensive inferential model of communication. يعني ايه where text or utterance whatever is made ostensive. امتى يبقى ostensive وواضح كده if it makes manifest an intention to make something manifest. What does this mean? Told that the hearer stimulated by this intention or this clear messages makes further inference in interpreting further possible intentions conveyed by the text. Okay, so human communication is twofold، له جزئين، ostensive ومن اللي بيقوم بيه السبيكر او الادريسر لازم يدي حاجات واضحه، and inferential استنتاجي and is operated by the addressee. Okay, let's go to something else. For example, here we have an example. If A says, for example, look at this. A's informative intention is it's hot. Okay, it's hot. When you say it's hot, if A says it's very hot here, and B says go, and B goes and opens the window. Okay, what happens here is that A doesn't only inform B that it's hot. It's not an informative intention. It's a communicative intention. What's this communicative intention? It is please open the window. So it's not primarily a piece of information A is giving to B that it's too hot or it's so hot. No, it's just an indirect or indirect request. Instead of saying please open the window, just say it's very hot here. So what happens is that what's the ostensive form here? It is the utterance itself, and the utterance includes ostensive and strong and clear messages. These clear messages, B, who is the listener, managed to receive and to understand and to act accordingly. And this is why B doesn't take it as a piece of information that it's hot. No, he understands or she understands it as an indirect request, and this is why he or she goes and opens the window. Okay, so this is a very important example: ostensive and inferencing. Ostensive and ostensive messages and inferencing that we do, and this is how we communicate. And most of our speech is based on the idea of inferencing. Human communication is inferential. Okay. Yes. Let's go to another point also: cognitive processing, effort and effects. Efforts, mental efforts. مين بيقوم بيها؟ The listener or the addressee or the audience, and effects, the meaning they get. Mental effort to arrive at the meaning of this is the essence of this theory. Okay, here we have a very important quote talking about the dynamic model of meaning. Dynamic model of meaning. Let's see this. The actual contextual meaning is constructed in the dynamic interplay of the conceptual system, relying on prior coded knowledge, blending schemes, mapping, and the other cognitive operation, and the actual contextual operation triggered by the merging of lexical units and extralinguistic situational elements. So here, as we said, arriving at the meaning of a text is not in the text, is not in its lexical units. Okay, it's in alone. No, it's in all these things in the text plus what the speaker assumes to be there in the head of the listener or okay, background knowledge, prior knowledge, blending schemes, and all these things, mental models, all what we have that can help us mix the knowledge that comes from the text with the knowledge that we have in order to arrive at meaning. And this is what we call bottom-up processing. Bottom-up processing. What is this? The text gives us information. This is called bottom knowledge. And then our head up, up here means what's stored in our head. Okay, our head is our head includes an archive, big archive of background knowledge and world experience, and so on, and mental models, things, memories, and so on. We add to the text from all these things to make this incredible mix. And this is why if I give a text to a group of students, each one will work it out differently, will understand it differently, because each one of them adds to the text from his or her own personal and unique experience, word experience. This is why the outcome and the comprehension of each one of them would be so different. Hope this is understood. And let's go to something else. The idea of imblecture. Yeah, what's meant by imblecture? The key term here, imblecture, has triggered much debate. Okay, and let's understand. On how to define. Debate on how to define an imblecture, its kinds, its relation to other related terms such as imblecture, exblecture, and strong or weak, and so on. First introduced by Grice, and Grice is a great language philosopher, someone who has been concerned with how meaning is created and how human communication is based on the cooperative principle, and that both listeners and speakers, both recipients and producer of text and so on, must cooperate in order to create meaning. Without this cooperation, we cannot have human communication successful. Imblecture, yes, the definition is defined as extra messages that are indirectly enacted in discourse. Extra hidden messages. Okay, so things which are not said explicitly, messages that we cannot, that we have to deduce, that we have to infer, simply put. Okay, and then we have some examples. Okay, I miss the midday prayer, and B says there is a mosque over there. As we said before, this is not said on the part of A to give a piece of information that he missed the midday prayer. No, it's an indirect request or question to tell from A to B, to tell him or her where can he or she pray. And this is why number B, there is a mosque over there, is very relevant. Why it's relevant? Because the B understand that it's not a piece of information, it's not an informative message. No, it's a communicative message. It needs the A needs help. A needs some. It's a request, And then let's look at number 2. Mother to a sleeping boy or child. It's 7 a.m. What's implicated here? It's time to get up. Mother to another child. You are so quiet. What's implicated here? You are not quiet. Okay, so these are implications, ostensive implications that we infer from the context. Okay, and most of our communication as humans is inferential, right? I'm not going to go deeper in this, but this is what it would be enough for me and for you to just have very simple definition of this term. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to context. Yeah, context. A very important term. Processing shouldn't stop after obtaining the meaning. Okay, here or where context plays a crucial part. Let's look at what's meant by the context, because this term has undergone, tremendous changes. Okay, has undergone tremendous changes. Let's see. The notion of context has been a key construct in all pragmatic and discourse analysis theories. احنا قلنا pragmatic ايه؟ Pragmatics, a branch of linguistics which studies the meaning as it's intended by the speaker or the producer of text. Okay, and let's see. There has been a consensus agreement among theorists on the fact that context is indispensable, very important, for meaning interpretation. Okay, it goes without saying. Of particular significance in this regard is RT treatment of the notion of context. كانت التريتمنت أو فكرة الكونتكست عند RT very very unique. Context, let's see. Context refers to the communicator's set of presuppositions, values and background. Context بقى زي ما Van Dyck said, context is not out there. Context is in here, and he pointed to our head. Context is something cognitive. Let's go. Context refers to the communicators set of presuppositions. Communicators هنا بقى مش قصدنا بس السبيكرز لوحده ولا الليسنر لوحده، لا، both. Context refers to the communicator's set of presuppositions, values, and background. A basic RT processing principle is that one should leave implicit everything one can trust the audience to supply with the least effort. You, as a communicator, you don't have to say everything. You leave gaps to listeners and your audience to supply for themselves and on their own with the least effort. This is the beauty of human communication. Just justifies the significance of contextual assumptions which are necessary for successful communication. So how can audience or the audience supply these gaps or fill these communicative gaps that you leave as speakers? It's through using contextual effects and the contextual elements. Okay, context is not limited to textual. Very important definition. Context is not limited to textual. مش بس خاص بالسياق بالنص وخلاص، حاجة مرتبطة بالنص وخلاص limited to، لا، or co-textual، يعني how text the particular sentence relates to another sentence, previous sentence, and the other sentence after it, following sentence, and so on. No. Text, is not limited to textual, co-textual, يعني the relationship between sentences with and paragraphs and so on within the same text, or external or external physical environment, place, time, زمان والمكان والكلام ده, but also دي الأهم بقى a set of all the assumptions. Excellent. A set of all the assumptions the addressee knows about the world, such as expectations about the future, scientific hyper or religious beliefs, anecdotal, our memories, our general cultural assumptions, beliefs about the mental state of the speakers, and so on. So again, it's a very, very important, really amazing concept or definition of the term context. You know, in the past we used to consider context as something textual or co-textual, في النص حاجة كده سياق والنص داخل النص وكده. لا دلوقتي بقى ايه، او حتى external physical. لا دلوقتي بقى حاجة cognitive. Context has to do with everything the listener or the reader, recipient, المتلقي بشكل عام, has that enable him or her to understand the text. Everything. Background knowledge, words, experience, expectations, beliefs, ideas, religious beliefs, memories, you know, cultural assumptions, everything. Mental state, you know, everything. Going a step further, RT theorists coin the term cognitive environment. Very interesting. Cognitive environment, to forcefully emphasize how so important the individual's world representation, how we see the world, because we understand everything in the light of our world vision, our world view, how we see the world. Our mental model of things and events and other individuals. We have mental models, نموذج ذهني for everything we see, for things, for events, for people around us, for everything we do and learn. Okay, you have a mental model for your friend, for your mom, for your dad, and so on. So when you see your friend after all these after years, for example, and what happens is that there is a match between what you see that comes to you, the stimulus that comes to you from the outside world once you see your friend, and a mental copy of this friend in your head. You make a match, your brain makes an instant matching, and then you all of a sudden, you know, and instantly say, yeah, this is my friend so and so, this is my friend X, this is my friend Y. Okay, this okay, this what we mean according to RT, what's meant by context. This must be, you know, learned by heart, because this is the essence of this very interesting theory. Again, context is not limited to textual, co-textual, or external physical environment. You know, let me tell you, where can you find this? You know, I think that you know, yes, under the title context, it's on page 19. It's on page 19 because the page numbers here are different. My copy is different from yours, the one in your book. Okay, so this is a very important definition and really new. And we have cognitive environment that allow us to understand. It has to do with everything we know about a particular topic to understand it. Okay, and then we have RT, notion of cognitive environment, postulate that it involves all the facts the addressee knows about an utterance environment, and assumptions, and everything that is relevant and can help us understand a text. Okay. Um, we have also German to the notion of mental representation of facts underlying the context is the notion of mental context. Yeah. So we have also mental context. Mental context. مبقاش السياق بس كده، بقى سياق mental context، سياق ذهني proposed here and what's meant by mental context. It embraces our stored knowledge. نفس فكرة ال cognitive environment. Our stored knowledge that we learn over time of how to recognize such features as sociopolitical background, ethnic identity, power, politeness, solidarity, injustice, etc. From the way an individual talks, behaves, wears, etc. Such data help us interpret language. So we can get mental context, and this is it has to do with our stored knowledge regarding politics, power, identity, ethnic, background. All these are part of our world knowledge of what we know about the world. Okay. And also we have very important definition by two amazing scientists and psychologists and linguists, by the way. Walter Kunch, the amazing cognitive psychologist who collaborated for over a decade with the amazing also Van Dyck, and they view that context as mental model represented in memory, including many cultural, semantic, rhetorical, pragmatic, lexical, stylistic assets necessary for the production and the comprehension of discourse. So we have a revolution in the concept of context. It's not restricted or limited to textual, contextual, and even external context. No, this to do with cognitive context, mental context. All what we have, all what we learn, all what's stored in our head that can help us understand the text and receive it and work out its meaning. Okay. Here we have some sort of connection between RT and CDA, and CDA here means critical discourse analysis, and this sub-branch of discourse analysis, تحليل الخطاب النقدي. Okay. And why? Because RT is based on the idea of human communication is inferential and so on. And in order to that, we must understand how our cognitive environment and the mental model and background knowledge and all these things are determined by the ideology of the community in which we live, the culture, the political system, the heritage of the society to which we belong, and so on. So it's we have to put also critical discourse analysis as something that can help, a venue that can help us understand this. Let's see what's meant by critical discourse analysis. This is a definition. CDA is critical of social injustice. احنا قلنا ان هو الأول it's a sub branch of of discourse analysis, and CDA is a sub branch, and it has to do with it is critical of social injustice, the abuse of power, racism, dominance, brainwashing, and all these things. And it's critical of all these things through shedding light on the dominant forces, the elites that impose their agenda and version of reality on the dominated. Okay, who are the elites? The elites are the powerful and dominant groups in politics and in economy and in the field of intellectuals in general, and so on. Arts, and these are the dominant in the influential institutions of any society. Educational institutions, cultural institutions, political institutions, financial institutions, and so on. ده بنسميهم the elites. النخبة أوصف نخب. Okay, not necessarily this is done. Okay, so critical discourse analysis is critical of all these things, not necessarily through violent means, but through persuasion and manipulation, because these the dominant institutions which represent the elites impose their agenda and version of reality on the dominated, the people, the common people, not necessarily through violent means, but through persuasion and manipulation. So critical discourse analysis helps us identify all these things and see injustice as injustice, racism as racism, brainwashing as brainwashing, so we can emancipate ourselves and set ourselves free from all these things, and help our communities and our societies be better once all these forms of injustice are addressed. I think that this would help communities and societies heal and fix these problems and tackle all these social ills, and so on. Okay, let's have a look at discourse analysis. What's meant by discourse analysis? Political discourse, and it includes press releases, political addresses, parliamentary debates, and so on. And political language is manipulative, and George Orwell, the great writer, he says that politics, the main thrust of his arguments, language, when manipulated by the government, has crucial and unconscious influence on people's political thought. What a particular government, the language a particular government uses, has a crucial and unconscious influence on people's political thought. People see what the governments project to them through language, and political language is has a lot of lies and the biases and inaccuracies and all these things. These are essential components of political language. Okay, let's go to something else, which is that language to a great extent helps people shape political vision. They do not know political events language doesn't describe or attend. So furthermore, the language used in the description of a given event creates a bundle of intellectual assumptions, attitudes, schema, etc., that shape our experience. So we get our political point of view or vision through the language of the discourse that's given to us through governmental discourse, institutional discourse, what's written, political speeches, debates, parliamentary discussion. كل أشكال اللغة السياسية دي هي اللي بتخلينا نعرف أو نشوف all these forms of political language and political discourse help shape the way we see politics and believe in certain beliefs and ideologies and so on. Okay. One of the persuasive strategies that political language uses is messic thinking, اللي هو التفكير الخرافي, messic thinking. And what's messic thinking is that the idea is that simply, casually simple in the sense that it advocates one and only one apparent cause of an event. According to messic thinking, there is only one reason or one cause for anything. And this makes us believe that it's only one, everything is unilateral. It's not multi-sided. So we look at a particular event or a particular idea, a particular concept from one perspective. Of course, this will not make us see things from the other sides of the story, and whatever the perspective, our vision would be insufficient, would be inaccurate, because we do not see everything. This is what's meant by messic thinking, and very prevalent in political discourse and political language, because this is doesn't allow us to think critically of what's happening and to look at the pros and cons of things and to look at the different aspects of a particular event or a particular ideology or a particular set of convictions and ideas and so on. Okay? And by this, I come to the end of this lecture. Next time, we're going to talk about argumentation and different kinds of argumentation and how they appear in Tony Blair's resignation speech. Thank you.